The Spiritual Path of Karate, The Way Beyond the Punch, by David Russo. Introduction. There is a moment before every punch, before the fist tightens, before the breath settles, before the body moves, when everything becomes still. In that stillness lives the true heart of karate. Many come to karate seeking strength. Some seek confidence. Others arrive looking for discipline or self-defense. And all of these are worthy pursuits. But those who stay, those who remain through the repetitions, the sweat, the frustration, the humility, begin to discover something quieter and far more transformative. Karate is not merely a system of strikes and blocks. It is a way of being. The word karate is often translated as empty hand, yet over time I have come to understand that this emptiness points to something deeper. It speaks to the emptying of ego, the emptying of distraction, the emptying of fear. When the hand is empty, it is open. When the mind is empty, it is clear. When the heart is empty of pride, it is ready to learn. This book is not a technical manual. You will not find step-by-step diagrams of punches or detailed instructions for perfecting a stance. Instead, you will be invited into the inner landscape of practice, the terrain beneath the visible movements, because every bow contains humility, every stance contains stability, every kata contains a story, every breath contains awareness. Over years of training, I have encountered many martial traditions, each with its own philosophy, rhythm, and emphasis. Some systems cultivate flowing softness, others refine explosive precision. Yet across traditions, one truth remains: martial arts, when practiced with sincerity, become vehicles for spiritual growth. Karate is our doorway. Within the walls of the dojo, something subtle begins to unfold. The body learns discipline, the mind learns focus, the spirit learns resilience. What begins as physical repetition becomes moving meditation. What appears to be combat training becomes self-inquiry. We begin by learning how to stand, then how to move. Eventually, we learn how to be. There are moments in practice, fleeting but unmistakable, when mind, body, and spirit align completely. Time slows, thought quiets, action flows without effort. I call this experience Haya, a surge of unified presence and intent. It is not aggression. It is not adrenaline. It is clarity in motion. Haya cannot be forced. It arises when discipline softens into awareness. When technique dissolves into embodiment. It is the quiet power that emerges when we are fully here. This inner alignment is not confined to the dojo. In fact, the dojo is only the training ground. Life is the true practice. The frustrations we face in sparring mirror the tensions we carry in conversation. The patience required to refine a kata reflects the patience needed to nurture relationships. The humility of bowing to a partner teaches us how to meet others with respect beyond the mat. Karate becomes a mirror. It shows us where we are rigid. It reveals where we are reactive. It illuminates where we are afraid. And, if we allow it, it gently guides us toward balance. In a world that often celebrates speed, noise, and constant reaction, karate offers another way, the way beyond the punch. A way of deliberate action, of conscious restraint, of strength guided by compassion. The spiritual path of karate does not remove us from the world. It prepares us to engage with it more skillfully. Through repetition, we cultivate patience. Through challenge, we discover courage. Through failure, we uncover humility. Through perseverance, we awaken quiet confidence. This path is not about becoming invincible. It is about becoming integrated. When we step onto the mat, we step into ourselves. We encounter our habits, our doubts, our ambitions. We face the ego that wants recognition and the fear that resists growth. And through steady practice, we learn to bow not in defeat, but in awareness. The journey begins simply: one breath, one stance, one bow. From there, the way unfolds not as a straight line toward mastery, but as a circle that continually returns us to presence. Karate, practiced deeply, becomes a spiritual art, not because it speaks of mysticism, but because it reveals truth through experience. It teaches us that power without awareness is imbalance, that discipline without compassion is harshness, that skill without humility is incomplete. Beyond the punch lies understanding. Beyond technique lies transformation. Beyond effort lies alignment. This is the way we will walk together, not toward domination, not toward perfection, but toward wholeness. Welcome to the path. Chapter 1. the dojo as a sacred space. Before a single word is spoken, before a single movement is made, there is a threshold. You stand outside the dojo door. In that quiet pause, something subtle begins. The noise of the world lingers behind you, unfinished conversations, daily responsibilities, restless thoughts. Yet as your hand reaches for the door, you are invited into something different. The dojo is not merely a training hall. It is a sanctuary. The word dojo can be translated as place of the way, a place not just to practice techniques, but to walk a path. Within its walls, sweat and silence coexist. Effort and humility meet. Here, the ordinary becomes intentional. When you step inside, you bow. The bow is not superstition. It is not empty tradition. It is a conscious crossing. With that gesture, you acknowledge that this space is set apart. You agree, silently, to be present. You leave behind distraction and step into awareness. In many spiritual traditions, sacred spaces are marked by ritual. Shoes are removed, voices soften, movements become deliberate. The dojo follows this same rhythm. Removing your shoes is not about cleanliness alone, it is an act of respect. Lining up is not about hierarchy alone, it is an expression of order. Bowing to the instructor and to your fellow practitioners is not about submission, it is recognition. Recognition that we are all walking the way together. Over time, you begin to feel that the dojo itself teaches you. The floor beneath your feet reminds you to stay grounded. The walls echo with effort and perseverance. The air seems to hold the memory of those who trained before you. Students who struggled, grew stronger, and discovered parts of themselves they did not know were there. Sacredness is not found in decoration. It is created by intention. A dojo may be simple plain walls, worn mats, the faint scent of sweat and wood polish. Yet when entered with mindfulness, it becomes a mirror for the inner world. Disorder in the room reflects disorder in the mind. Care for the space reflects care for the self. Cleaning the dojo after practice is one of its most overlooked spiritual lessons. With cloth in hand, wiping the floor you have just trained upon, you participate in humility. No one is above this task. Rank does not exempt you. In this simple act, ego softens. Gratitude deepens. You begin to understand. How you treat the space is how you treat your practice. And how you treat your practice is how you treat your life. Inside the dojo, distractions fall away. There are no titles from the outside world, no professions, no social status. The mat equalizes us. We are students, each confronting our own limitations, each refining our own discipline. This equality is sacred. Within these walls, mistakes are not failures. They are teachers. Frustration is not weakness. It is information. The dojo becomes a container strong enough to hold discomfort without judgment. And in that safety, growth becomes possible. The rituals that frame each class, the opening bow, the closing meditation, create rhythm. They signal to the body and mind that this time is intentional. Repetition of these rituals builds an inner architecture of steadiness. Eventually, the mere act of stepping onto the mat quiets the mind. What begins as external structure becomes internal stability. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the dojo begins to travel with you. You notice yourself pausing before reacting in conversation. As you once paused before stepping onto the mat, you become more aware of how you enter rooms, how you hold your posture, how you listen. The reverence cultivated in the dojo seeps into ordinary life. Your kitchen becomes a place of practice. Your workplace becomes a place of practice. Your relationships become places of practice. The sacred space was never confined to four walls. The true dojo is awareness itself. But we begin with the physical space because the body understands ritual before the mind understands philosophy. By bowing with the body, the heart learns humility. By standing in stillness, the mind learns presence. By respecting the training hall, we learn to respect the life we inhabit. Every time you cross that threshold, you are invited to return to yourself, to leave behind what is unnecessary, to step into discipline, to meet yourself honestly. The dojo is more than a room. It is a mirror. It is a container. It is a teacher. And if you enter it with sincerity, it will quietly transform you, one breath, one bow, one mindful step at a time. Chapter 2. The Bow. Respect in Motion. There is a quiet power in a simple bow. No words are spoken, no force is used, and yet, something profound passes between two people in that brief lowering of the head and softening of the gaze. In karate, the bow is often the first thing we learn. Before the first punch, before the first stance, before the first shout, we are taught how to bow. At first, it may feel like mere formality, a tradition inherited from another culture, a ritual repeated without much thought. But over time, the bow reveals itself as one of the deepest teachings in the dojo. To bow is to pause, and in that pause, the ego loosens its grip. When you bow to the dojo, you acknowledge the space that holds your growth. When you bow to your instructor, you honor the guidance you are about to receive. When you bow to a training partner, you recognize that without them, your practice would be incomplete. The bow says, silently, I see you, I respect you, I am ready to learn. It is respect in motion. In a world that often rewards assertiveness and self-promotion, the act of bowing offers a different strength. It does not diminish you. It does not make you smaller. Instead, it aligns you with humility, a quality often misunderstood. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. When we bow, we step out of comparison. There is no higher, no lower in that moment, only the human beings meeting in shared intention. Even in rank differences, the bow flows both ways, instructor to student, student to instructor. Respect is mutual, or it is not real. The body teaches the heart. As your spine inclines forward, your breath softens, your gaze lowers, the nervous system settles. The simple physical gesture begins to shape your inner state. Over time, you may notice that the bow itself brings you into presence. It becomes a doorway into awareness. And eventually, you begin to bow inwardly. You bow to your own limitations, not with shame, but with honesty. You bow to your frustrations, not with resistance, but with curiosity. You bow to your growth, not with pride, but with gratitude. In sparring, the bow before and after training carries special meaning. Before, it is an agreement. We will challenge each other with control and care. After, it is acknowledgement. Thank you for helping me grow. Without the bow, sparring could become ego against ego. With the bow, it becomes practice against limitation. The gesture reminds us that karate is not about domination. It is about refinement. Beyond the dojo, the spirit of the bow transforms everyday interactions. Imagine entering a conversation with the same inner posture, softened ego, attentive presence, quiet respect. Imagine disagreeing without hostility, listening without interruption, speaking without the need to overpower. The bow becomes invisible, yet its energy remains. You begin to sense that every interaction holds the potential for reverence. Every meeting is an opportunity to recognize the shared humanity between you and another. The practice of bowing trains the nervous system to respond with steadiness, instead of reactivity. This is how spirituality weaves itself into simple movement. There is no need for grand declarations, no need for dramatic displays of devotion. The bow is small, almost unremarkable, and yet, it shapes character through repetition. Each time your forehead lowers, pride softens. Each time your back bends, rigidity loosens. Each time you rise again, you do so with clarity. Respect is not a concept, it is a practice, and like all practices, it deepens through consistency. In time, the bow ceases to be something you perform. It becomes something you embody. Your posture changes, your tone changes, your presence changes. Others may not know why they feel at ease around you, but they sense the absence of aggression, the quiet steadiness of someone who has learned to bow. To bow is to recognize that we are all students of something greater, of life, of growth, of awareness itself. The movement is brief, but the transformation it initiates can last a lifetime. Chapter 3. Belts and Progress, the Journey Within. In the early days of training, the belt can seem like everything. Its color carries mystery. Its promise feels tangible. It hangs at the center of the uniform as a visible symbol of where you stand. For many students of karate, the belt becomes the first measure of progress, a marker of effort, skill, and time invested. But, as the journey unfolds, something deeper begins to reveal itself. A belt does not make you who you are. It reflects who you are becoming. When you first tie a white belt around your waist, it represents beginnings, openness, the willingness to step into unfamiliar territory. White holds all colors within it, just as the beginner holds all potential within themselves. There is innocence in this stage, but also courage, the courage to not know. As you progress, colors change, techniques sharpen, movements grow more confident. Yet with each advancement, the real transformation is not in the body alone, it is in the character. Patience is tested, consistency is demanded, ego is challenged. There will be days when progress feels invisible, days when your body refuses to cooperate, days when others seem to advance more quickly. In these moments, the belt can either become a source of frustration or a reminder. Growth is not linear. The spiritual path within karate is not about collecting colors. It is about refining the self. Each grading is an invitation to reflect. Have you cultivated discipline? Have you embodied respect? Have you practiced with sincerity? The belt around your waist asks questions that only you can answer honestly. And here lies one of the quiet paradoxes of the journey. The higher the rank, the deeper the humility required. Beginners often strive to prove themselves. Advanced practitioners strive to improve themselves. The shift is subtle but profound. Recognition becomes less important than refinement. Status fades in significance compared to integrity. A black belt, often seen as the pinnacle, is in truth another beginning. In some traditions, it symbolizes returning to the simplicity of the white belt now seasoned with experience. The circle closes, not in completion, but in renewed commitment, because mastery is not a destination, it is a relationship with practice. Over time, you may notice that the belt matters less than the tying of it. The daily act of wrapping it around your waist becomes ritual, a reminder that you are stepping once more onto the path. The belt holds your uniform closed, but it also holds your intention together. It asks, who will you be in today's training? Will you be impatient or present, rigid or adaptable, defensive or open? The color cannot answer for you. In life beyond the dojo, we also wear invisible belts, titles, roles, achievements. We attach identity to them, believing they define our worth. But just as in karate, these external markers are reflections, not essence. Strip them away, and what remains? Character. The discipline you cultivate in practice shapes how you handle disappointment. The perseverance you build through repetition shapes how you approach long-term goals. The humility you learn through correction shapes how you receive feedback in relationships and work. This is the true progression. Belts may fade, fabric may fray, but inner development endures. There is a quiet freedom in understanding that you are not training for the next belt, you are training for alignment, for steadiness, for integrity that no examination panel can award or revoke. The journey within unfolds at its own pace. Some lessons arrive quickly, others take years to integrate. Comparison becomes unnecessary when you realize that each practitioner walks a unique path. Your only real measure is who you were yesterday. When you tie your belt, whatever its color, let it remind you, this is not about proving your level. It is about deepening your presence. It is about honoring the commitment you have made to growth. The belt encircles your waist, but the journey encircles your life. Progress is not worn, it is lived. Chapter 4. Discipline, cultivating the inner self. Discipline is often misunderstood. To some, it sounds rigid, harsh, restrictive. It conjures images of stern correction and relentless repetition. And yet, within the practice of karate, discipline reveals a very different face. It is not punishment, it is devotion. Discipline is the quiet decision to return again and again to what matters. In the dojo, discipline begins simply. You arrive on time. You wear a clean uniform. You line up without being told. You listen fully. You repeat a technique not once, not twice, but dozens of times, refining small details invisible to the casual eye. At first, this repetition can feel tedious. The mind craves novelty. The ego wants rapid advancement. But discipline teaches us to stay. Stay with the breath. Stay with the stance. Stay with the correction. Through staying, something remarkable happens. The scattered mind begins to gather. The restless energy begins to focus. What once required force begins to flow with intention. Discipline bridges body, mind, and spirit. Every deliberate punch trains more than muscle. It trains attention. Every held stance strengthens more than legs. It strengthens endurance of discomfort. Every moment of stillness before movement cultivates restraint. Restraint is one of discipline's greatest gifts. In sparring, discipline prevents recklessness. In conversation, it prevents harmful words. In daily life, it creates space between impulse and action. This space is where wisdom lives. Without discipline, talent dissolves into inconsistency. With discipline, even modest ability transforms into quiet strength. Yet spiritual discipline is not about perfection. Perfection is brittle. It shatters under pressure. True discipline is flexible. It allows for mistakes while refusing to abandon commitment. There will be days when motivation fades. Days when fatigue whispers excuses. On those days, discipline becomes the anchor. Not dramatic, not loud, simply steady. You show up, and in showing up, you build trust with yourself. This self-trust is sacred. It is the foundation of inner confidence, not the loud confidence that seeks validation, but the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you will keep your word to yourself. Over time, discipline reshapes identity. You no longer practice only when inspired. You practice because it is part of who you are. The path is no longer something you visit. It is something you inhabit, and something even subtler unfolds. As discipline deepens, effort softens. Movements once forced become natural. Focus once strained becomes clear. The body responds without tension. The mind steadies without struggle. What began as structured repetition evolves into embodied presence. This is the paradox. Through structure, we discover freedom. Freedom from distraction. Freedom from reactivity. Freedom from the chaos of untrained impulses. Discipline does not confine the spirit, it refines it. In life beyond the dojo, this refinement becomes invaluable. You begin to notice patterns of avoidance. You become aware of habits that drain energy. And instead of judging yourself, you apply the same steady commitment you learn it on the mat. Small, consistent actions. A daily moment of stillness. A measured response instead of a reactive one. A return to integrity when you falter. Discipline teaches that growth is rarely dramatic. It is built quietly, layer by layer, choice by choice. There is a profound dignity in this process. When you bow into training, when you hold a stance despite trembling legs, when you repeat a movement until it aligns, you are not merely practicing technique. You are shaping character. You are cultivating patience. You are strengthening resilience. You are clarifying intention. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the disciplined outer practice transforms the inner world. The mind becomes less scattered. The heart becomes less reactive. The spirit becomes steady. Discipline, then, is not about control. It is about alignment. It is the steady flame that keeps the path illuminated, even when enthusiasm flickers. It is the quiet promise that you will continue through ease and difficulty alike. And in honoring that promise, you discover that the true self is not forged in bursts of inspiration, but in the calm, consistent rhythm of devoted practice. Chapter 5. Etiquette and Rituals. Mindfulness in Action. At first glance, etiquette can appear ornamental, formal, gestures layered onto training like decoration. Line up here, bow there, address the instructor in a certain way, remove your shoes, straighten your uniform, simple rules, predictable rituals. And yet within the practice of karate, these rituals are not superficial. They are the architecture of awareness. Ritual slows us down. In everyday life, we move quickly. We rush into rooms. We speak before listening. We act before centering. But in the dojo, etiquette interrupts haste. It inserts intention where habit would otherwise dominate. Before stepping onto the mat, you pause. Before beginning practice, you bow. Before speaking, you acknowledge. Each action becomes deliberate. This deliberateness is mindfulness in motion. When you remove your shoes at the entrance, you are doing more than protecting the floor. You are symbolically leaving behind the dust of the outside world, the concerns, the arguments, the mental clutter, all gently set aside. When you straighten your uniform, you are not performing for others. You are aligning yourself. Outer order reflects inner readiness. The smallest details, tying your belt carefully, standing with attentive posture, shape your state of mind. The body leads. The mind follows. Lining up according to rank teaches patience and humility. It reminds us that growth unfolds in stages. There is no shame in standing at the beginning. There is no arrogance permitted at the front. Each place in line carries responsibility. Addressing the instructor with respect is not about hierarchy for its own sake. It is about recognizing guidance. In a culture that often resists authority, the dojo offers a different model, one where authority is earned through experience and upheld through mutual respect. Even silence has structure. When the class kneels in stillness before or after training, the quiet is not empty. It is full of integration. Breath slows, heartbeat settles, the nervous system recalibrates. In that shared silence, individual effort merges into collective presence. Ritual creates rhythm, and rhythm creates stability. Through repetition, etiquette becomes embodied. You no longer think, I must bow now. The bow happens naturally. You no longer force attentiveness. It arises because your body recognizes the pattern of practice. This is how spirituality weaves into daily action, not through dramatic revelation, but through consistent awareness. Over time, the rituals of the dojo begin to influence life beyond its walls. You pause before entering your home, aware of the energy you carry inside. You listen fully before responding in conversation. You handle everyday objects with more care. You begin to understand that mindfulness is not confined to meditation cushions or training mats. It is available in how you open a door, how you prepare a meal, how you greet another human being. Ritual transforms the ordinary into the sacred, and perhaps most importantly, etiquette trains respect not only for others, but for the moment itself. When you treat each practice as meaningful, each interaction as worthy of attention, life subtly shifts. Moments stop blending into one another. They become distinct, vivid, intentional. In the dojo, nothing is rushed. Even intensity is contained within structure. This containment allows energy to flow without chaos. It teaches that strength and order, not opposites, they are partners. Without etiquette, practice would lose its container. Without ritual, intensity would scatter. Structure does not limit spirit. It gives it form, like the banks of a river guiding water's flow. Through mindful repetition of simple acts, bowing, lining up, listening, cleaning, you cultivate an inner steadiness that no external circumstance can easily shake. You learn that awareness is not reserved for extraordinary experiences. It is cultivated in the smallest gestures, a straightened uniform, a patient breath, a respectful greeting. In these acts, the spirit of practice reveals itself. Not grand, not dramatic, but quietly transformative. Etiquette is not about following rules. It is about remembering that every action, when performed with presence, becomes a step along the spiritual path. Chapter 6, Kata, Moving Meditation. There is a moment in kata when the world falls away. No opponent stands before you, and yet you are not alone. No words are spoken, and yet a dialogue unfolds between breath and body, memory and instinct, effort and surrender. Within the practice of karate, kata is often described as a sequence of movements, blocks, strikes, turns, stances arranged in precise order. But to experience kata fully is to realize it is far more than choreography. It is meditation in motion. In seated meditation, we return to the breath. In kata, we return to the body. Each stance becomes an anchor. Each transition becomes a reminder to stay present. The mind cannot wander far. The sequence demands attention. One misplaced step disrupts the flow. One distracted thought alters timing. Kata teaches concentration not through stillness, but through deliberate action. At first, the focus is external. Where do the feet go? How high is the block? Which direction do I turn? The mind works diligently, assembling the pattern piece by piece. Mistakes are common, corrections are constant. But with repetition, something shifts. The sequence begins to live within you. You no longer think, now I step. The body steps. You no longer calculate, now I strike. The strike emerges. Movement and awareness merge into a single current. This is where kata becomes spiritual practice. Ego softens because there is no audience to impress. There is only alignment to refine. You are not performing for applause. You are refining attention. The opponent you face is invisible, symbolic a projection of your own imbalance, hesitation, or doubt. Each sharp exhale clears mental clutter. Each rooted stance grounds restless energy. Each controlled transition teaches restraint. And then, occasionally, there is a moment of complete integration. Breath, movement, and intention synchronize. Time seems to stretch. The edges between thought and action dissolve. What remains is pure presence and embodied clarity, sometimes felt as a subtle surge of unified energy. This is Haya, not aggression, not force, but focused aliveness. Haya arises when effort and surrender meet. Too much force, and movement becomes rigid. Too little intention, and it becomes empty. Kata teaches the balance between these extremes, the harmony of firmness and fluidity. It is a conversation between tension and release. The beauty of kata lies in its layers. At the surface, it refines technique. Beneath that, it builds endurance. Deeper still, it reveals emotional patterns. Are you rushing through movements? Perhaps impatience lives within you. Are you hesitating before strong strikes? Perhaps doubt lingers beneath the surface. Kata reflects your inner state with startling honesty. There is nowhere to hide in repetition, and yet, this repetition is compassionate. Each practice offers another opportunity to align, another chance to soften what is rigid, another invitation to embody steadiness. Over time, kata becomes less about remembering steps and more about inhabiting them. The form shapes you as much as you shape the form. Posture improves, breathing deepens, awareness sharpens. You begin to sense that the outer pattern is guiding an inner one. Life, too, has its kata. Daily routines, recurring challenges, familiar conversations. At first, we move through them unconsciously, but with awareness, even routine becomes practice. We can choose how we step, how we turn, how we respond. Just as in kata, we can refine our timing, adjust our balance, soften unnecessary tension. The dojo offers a contained space to practice this refinement, but the lesson extends beyond the mat. When you perform kata with sincerity, you are rehearsing presence. You are training your nervous system to remain steady amid imagined conflict. You are embodying strength without hostility, power without aggression. Kata reminds us that spirituality is not escape from the body. It is full inhabitation of it. Each movement becomes prayer in motion. Each breath becomes intention made visible. Each sequence becomes a mirror reflecting who you are in this moment. And when the final stance settles, when the last breath leaves your body in stillness, there is a quiet knowing. The meditation was not separate from the movement. It was the movement. In kata, we discover that the path to inner stillness does not always require silence. Sometimes, it requires stepping forward with clarity, turning with awareness, and striking with unwavering presence. Through disciplined repetition, the form dissolves into freedom, and in that freedom, the spirit moves centered, awake, and whole. Chapter 7. Sparring. Facing the self. There is a different energy in the room when sparring begins. The air feels charged. Breath shortens slightly. Awareness sharpens. Unlike kata, where the opponent is imagined, sparring places another living, breathing human being in front of you. Within the practice of karate, sparring is often misunderstood as the ultimate test of dominance. But in truth, it is one of the clearest mirrors you will ever face. Because when someone moves toward you with speed and unpredictability, your true habits emerge. You cannot rehearse your reactions. You cannot edit your impulses. In a fraction of a second, you discover whether you tighten in fear, rush in recklessly, freeze in doubt, or strike with clarity. Sparring reveals the self. The first lessons are often uncomfortable. You may notice frustration when a technique fails. You may feel pride flare when a strike lands cleanly. You may experience embarrassment when caught off guard. These reactions rise instantly before the thinking mind can soften them. This is not failure. This is awareness. Sparring brings hidden tendencies into the light. Impatience, aggression, hesitation, the ego's need to win, the fear of losing, all of it surfaces in motion. And this is precisely why sparring is sacred. Before each round, you bow. In that bow is an unspoken agreement. We will challenge each other with control. We will learn, not harm. We will grow together. Without this shared intention, sparring becomes conflict. With it, sparring becomes collaboration. You are not fighting your partner. You are refining yourself through them. There is a moment in skillful sparring when movement becomes less about attack and defense and more about listening. You begin to read subtle shifts in weight, changes in breath, micro-movements in the shoulders or hips. Awareness expands beyond your own body into shared space. Reaction slows. Presence deepens. In these moments, the quiet surge of Haya may arise not as aggression, but as alignment. Mind steady, body responsive, emotions calm. You move without forcing. You respond without panic. Haya in sparring is clarity under pressure, but it does not come from trying to overpower. It comes from surrendering ego. When the need to prove yourself dissolves, perception sharpens. When pride quiets, timing improves. Sparring teaches restraint as much as courage. You learn to pull a strike at the last instant, to control power, to choose precision over force. This discipline carries profound spiritual weight. Strength without control is chaos. Power guided by awareness is integrity. Over time, you begin to see that every exchange is a conversation. A feint asks a question, a block answers, a counter invites adaptation. Sparring becomes dynamic meditation, a fluid dialogue where both participants refine balance and timing together. Outside the dojo, life mirrors this dance. Conflict arises unexpectedly. Words come at you with sharp edges. Circumstances shift without warning. In these moments, the training of sparring whispers quietly, breathe, stay centered, respond, do not react. You begin to notice space where there once was only impulse. Instead of striking back with harsh words, you pause. Instead of shrinking in discomfort, you ground yourself. Instead of escalating tension, you adjust and flow. The true opponent was never the person in front of you. It was fear. It was ego. It was unconscious reaction. Sparring teaches that courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to remain present within it. It teaches that humility strengthens awareness. It teaches that growth often arrives disguised as challenge. When the round ends, you bow again. Sweat on your brow, breath steadying, heart still elevated. In that closing bow is gratitude. Gratitude for the partner who exposed your blind spots. Gratitude for the discomfort that stretched you. Gratitude for the opportunity to meet yourself honestly. Sparring is not about winning. It is about integration. The more you train, the more you realize that each exchange on the mat prepares you for exchanges in life. You learn to stay balanced in uncertainty, to maintain composure and intensity, to act with intention rather than impulse. And perhaps most importantly, you learn that true strength is not loud. It is centered. It is controlled. It is compassionate. In facing another, you face yourself. And in that honest encounter, the spirit grows steady, ready not only to defend, but to understand, to adapt, and to move through the world with grounded courage. Chapter 8. Karate and Mindfulness. Mindfulness is often imagined as stillness, a quiet room, closed eyes, a steady breath rising and falling in silence. And yet, within the practice of karate, mindfulness does not require the absence of movement. It asks for presence within movement. Karate is awareness in action. From the outside, a class may appear intense, sharp strikes, strong stances, focused expressions. But from the inside, something subtler is unfolding. Every technique is an opportunity to return to the present moment. When you step forward into a stance, you feel the ground beneath your feet. When you extend a punch, you sense the alignment of knuckles, wrist, elbow, shoulder. When you exhale sharply, you notice the rhythm of breath and the contraction of the core. Nothing is automatic, or rather, what becomes automatic is awareness itself. Mindfulness in karate begins with attention to detail. The angle of a foot, the height of a block, the timing of a turn. At first, this attention may feel mechanical, but gradually, it sharpens perception. The mind learns to rest in specifics instead of drifting into distraction. You cannot execute a precise technique while replaying yesterday's argument. You cannot maintain balance while worrying about tomorrow's tasks. The body demands presence, and so the present moment becomes your training partner. There is something profoundly grounding about this. In a world saturated with constant stimulation, karate narrows the field of attention. It asks you to inhabit your body fully, to feel tension as it arises, to adjust posture consciously, to regulate breath intentionally. Through repetition, mindfulness becomes embodied. You begin to notice small shifts: how frustration tightens the shoulders, how impatience speeds up movement, how doubt weakens a stance. Instead of judging these sensations, you observe them. You adjust, you breathe, Awareness replaces reaction. This is the essence of mindful practice, not eliminating thought or emotion, but witnessing them without being ruled by them. During training, there may be moments when everything aligns. The mind is quiet but alert. The body moves with clarity. Breath and motion synchronize effortlessly. In these moments, a subtle vitality emerges as centered, unified energy sometimes felt as haya. Haya is not excitement. It is not adrenaline. It is calm intensity, a state where you are fully here, neither anticipating nor resisting, simply responding. This state cannot be forced. It arises when attention is steady and ego is quiet. It is the natural result of disciplined mindfulness. Karate teaches that awareness is not passive. It is dynamic. It sharpens reflexes without tension. It heightens perception without anxiety. It cultivates readiness without aggression. And slowly, this quality of attention extends beyond the dojo. You begin to walk with more presence, to listen more fully, to notice how your body responds to stress before your mind creates a story around it. You sense when your breath becomes shallow in conversation, when your posture collapses under pressure. Because you have trained awareness in motion, you recognize it in life's movement. Mindfulness is no longer confined to formal practice. Washing dishes becomes an opportunity to feel water and temperature. Driving becomes a study of posture and breath. Even conflict becomes a space to observe internal reactions before responding. The same steady attention you cultivate in a front stance can be applied to a difficult decision. The same controlled exhale you use in a strike can calm a tense exchange. Karate reveals that the present moment is always accessible, not somewhere else, not later, now. Each punch begins and ends in now. Each block is executed in now. Each breath anchors you in now. Over time, you realize that mindfulness is not something you add to your life. It is something you uncover by removing distraction. Through practice, the layers of mental noise thin. The body becomes an ally instead of an afterthought. Awareness becomes your default state rather than a rare achievement. Karate is not separate from meditation. It is meditation expressed through form. Every stance says, be here. Every strike says, be clear. Every breath says, be steady. And in living this way, attentive, grounded, awake, you discover that mindfulness is not fragile. It does not depend on silence or solitude. It can exist in motion. It can exist in challenge. It can exist in every step you take on the mat and beyond. Chapter 9, Overcoming the Ego. The ego rarely announces itself loudly. It does not walk into the dojo wearing a name tag. It does not declare, I am here to interfere with your growth. Instead, it whispers, it compares, it defends, it seeks recognition and resists correction. Within the practice of karate, the ego is both revealed and refined. At first, it may appear as the desire to advance quickly, to earn the next belt, to impress the instructor, to outperform a training partner. These motivations are not inherently wrong. They are natural. But if left unexamined, they quietly shift the focus from growth to validation. The ego wants to be seen as skilled. The spirit wants to become skillful. This distinction changes everything. In training, the ego flares most brightly when we are corrected. A small adjustment to a stance can feel like criticism. A missed technique can feel like failure. A sparring loss can feel personal. Notice the language that arises internally. I should be better than this. They're watching me struggle. I can't let this happen again. These are the voices of identity protecting itself. Karate, when practiced sincerely, invites us to listen without believing every thought. The mat becomes a laboratory for self-observation. You begin to see how pride tightens the jaw, how frustration stiffens the shoulders, how comparison disrupts focus. The body tells the truth before the mind does. Overcoming the ego does not mean destroying it. The ego has its place. It helps us navigate the world, maintain boundaries, and pursue goals. But in the dojo, ego must be guided rather than obeyed. Humility becomes the counterbalance. Humility is not self-deprecation. It is accurate self-perception. It is the willingness to see both strengths and weaknesses without distortion. When humility enters practice, correction becomes a gift rather than a threat. Mistakes become information rather than shame. There is freedom in this. Imagine training without the constant need to prove yourself. Imagine sparring without measuring your worth by each exchange. Imagine receiving feedback with curiosity instead of defensiveness. This freedom emerges slowly through repetition and reflection. Every bow is an act of ego softening. Every time you clean the dojo floor regardless of rank, pride loosens. Every time you congratulate a partner sincerely, comparison fades. And in moments of deep focus, when breath steadies, when technique flows effortlessly, when haya arises as calm alignment, the ego recedes entirely. There is no me performing. There is only movement happening with clarity. These glimpses are profound. They show us that beneath the ego's noise lies something quieter and stronger. Presence. The more you practice, the more you recognize that the true opponent is not across from you in sparring. It is the internal voice that demands superiority, the tension that refuses to yield, the attachment to image. Karate teaches surrender, not as weakness, but as wisdom. When you release the need to appear advanced, you become open to advancement. When you let go of defending your limitations, you become capable of transcending them. When you stop grasping for recognition, respect arises naturally. Outside the dojo, the lessons deepen. In conversation, you notice the urge to interrupt to prove a point. In conflict, you sense the impulse to win rather than understand. In success, you observe the subtle inflation of identity. Instead of suppressing these reactions, you acknowledge them. You breathe. You choose differently. Overcoming the ego is not a single breakthrough. It is a daily refinement, a steady returning to awareness. Some days, pride will reappear. Other days, insecurity will surface. The practice is not to eliminate these experiences, but to see them clearly. Clarity weakens their control. Karate offers countless opportunities for this seeing. Each class is a mirror, each partner, a teacher, each challenge, an invitation to soften and strengthen at the same time. The paradox is beautiful. As ego diminishes, confidence grows. Not loud confidence, not arrogance, but grounded assurance rooted in authenticity. You no longer need to dominate. You no longer need to compare. You no longer need to defend who you are becoming, because who you are becoming is steady. And in that steadiness, the spirit stands tall, not inflated, not diminished, but balanced. This is the quiet victory of the path, not conquering others, but gently, patiently, overcoming the self that stands in the way of deeper awareness. Chapter 10. Living the dojo spirit beyond the mat. The lessons of the dojo are meant to stay confined within four walls. They are seeds planted in practice, ready to bloom in every moment of life. Karate teaches us discipline, presence, respect, and humility, but the true mastery lies in carrying these principles beyond the mat. Every bow, every stance, every kata, every moment of focus trains more than the body. It trains the mind and spirit, and once trained, they are available everywhere. The discipline that steadies you during a sparring match, steadies you in difficult conversations. The awareness that keeps your posture aligned in kata reminds you to remain grounded amid life's pressures. The humility that compels you to clean the dojo floor quietly nurtures gratitude and empathy in daily interactions. Living the dojo spirit is about attention. It begins with noticing how you move through the world. Are your words measured, or do they fly unchecked? Are your actions deliberate, or do you rush through moments as if life were secondary? Each choice becomes a reflection of the training within. The same mindfulness you cultivate in practice becomes a lens through which you see ordinary life, transforming routine into ritual and repetition into presence. Respect, too, extends outward. Just as you bow to the dojo, the instructor, and your partners, you begin to bow metaphorically to others, co-workers, strangers, family members. Respect is not merely courtesy. It is a recognition of shared humanity. It is listening fully, responding thoughtfully, and valuing the effort and dignity of those around you. Even challenges become opportunities. Life will inevitably bring obstacles, frustrations, and conflicts. Here, the spirit of the dojo acts as guidance. You meet difficulties with steady breath, clear perception, and centered intent. You respond rather than react. You act with integrity rather than impulse. What once required effort on the mat, the alignment of mind, body, and spirit becomes natural in life. The dojo teaches balance, strength tempered with gentleness, focus blended with openness, action guided by awareness. These lessons are not abstract ideals. They are lived experience, visible in the way you treat others, the care you show yourself, and the presence you bring to every moment. Living the dojo spirit is not about perfection. It is about commitment. It is about carrying the practice forward, moment by moment, breath by breath. It is about transforming the principles learned in training discipline, mindfulness, respect, humility into a way of being. When you do this, the mat no longer defines the limits of practice. Every space becomes sacred. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to embody presence. Every challenge becomes a teacher. The dojo has become more than a place. It has become a guide for living consciously, courageously, and compassionately. And in this way, the journey of karate and the journey of the spirit continues, not only in training, but in the life you shape with each mindful step. Bonus chapter: the spiritual expression of karate styles. Karate is not a single path. It is a forest of paths. Each style offers a unique expression of physical movement and spiritual principle. While the techniques differ, the inner lessons presence, discipline, humility, and awareness remain universal. Through these diverse forms, we see the many ways the spirit manifests on the mat. In Shotokan karate, movements are linear and strong, stances firm and deliberate. This style emphasizes perseverance and patience. Haya emerges in moments of precise focus, where the practitioner's energy aligns with intention. Through repetition of firm strikes and long stances, the student learns that power is born of steady effort and mindful control, not haste or force. Goju-ryu karate blends hard and soft movements, demonstrating the harmony of strength and flexibility. The practitioner learns that spiritual growth is not about rigidity, but balance. Hard strikes teach decisiveness. Soft, circular movements teach receptivity. Haya flows calmly here, a centered energy that unites the mind, body, and spirit, showing that the path of the spirit is about adaptability as much as precision. In Shido-ryu karate, kata and adaptability are emphasized. Movements vary in speed, direction, and intensity, reflecting mindfulness and respect for tradition. Haya appears in deliberate bursts of alignment and focus. This style teaches that spiritual refinement is not found in uniformity, but in the conscious engagement with each moment, each posture, and each strike. Wado-ryu karate highlights flowing, evasive movements. The focus is on blending with the opponent, moving with harmony rather than resistance. Haya manifests as the energy of effortless integration, responding rather than forcing. The practitioner learns empathy, patience, and the art of yielding without losing strength. Spiritual insight arises from subtle attunement to what is present, rather than imposing what is desired. Across all these styles, Haya, the quiet surge of alignment, reveals the universal essence of karate, the union of mind, body, and spirit. Techniques may vary, but the inner journey is constant. Discipline cultivates presence. Ritual fosters mindfulness. Kata and sparring become moving meditation. And through it all, the practitioner discovers that the martial path is not about defeating others, but about refining the self, awakening the spirit, and living each moment with awareness, integrity, and compassion. No style owns the spiritual path. Each offers a window into it. By exploring them, we see the infinite ways the human spirit can express itself, transform through practice, and awaken through mindful action. Karate, in its diversity, teaches a singular truth. The path of the spirit is everywhere, waiting for the practitioner to meet it fully, one step, one movement, one conscious breath at a time. Conclusion: Karate as a path of the spirit. Karate is often seen as a discipline of the body, a study of strikes, stances, and forms. Yet, as we have explored in these pages, its truest lesson lies beyond the physical. Karate is a journey of self-discovery, a practice of presence, and a path to spiritual growth. Every movement, every bow, every kata, every challenge is an invitation to awaken to who we are beneath the surface of habit and ego. On the mat, we learn humility, we learn patience, we learn to notice the subtleties of posture, breath, and energy. We experience Haya, the quiet surge of alignment where mind, body, and spirit converge. In these moments, we understand that true strength is not measured by power over others, but by clarity, balance, and integrity within ourselves. Karate teaches that growth is a process, not a destination. Belts, ranks, and achievements are milestones, not endpoints. They reflect effort and dedication, but the real measure of mastery is character, presence, and awareness. Discipline, ritual, and mindfulness practiced consistently become the scaffolding for a life lived intentionally, both on and off the mat. Beyond the dojo, the lessons extend naturally into everyday life. Respect learned in bowing transforms into empathy in relationships. Awareness cultivated in kata translates into calm presence amid chaos. Courage developed through sparring becomes the courage to face fear, uncertainty, and conflict with clarity. The practices of karate are mirrors for living consciously, showing us how to navigate life with integrity and compassion. Spiritual growth in karate is subtle. It is not flashy or dramatic. It is the quiet evolution of the self. Moment by moment, breath by breath, movement by movement, it is learning to respond rather than react, to soften without losing strength, to surrender the ego while affirming the spirit. In the end, karate is more than a martial art. It is a guide, a companion along the path of awareness. It teaches us to inhabit our bodies fully, to calm the mind, to open the heart, and to awaken the spirit. Every step on this path, every disciplined practice, every mindful gesture is a doorway to living more consciously, courageously, and compassionately. The journey of karate and of the spirit begins with one step, one stance, one breath. And as we continue, we realize that the mat is not separate from life. The lessons are not confined to training. They are everywhere, waiting to be recognized, embodied, and expressed. Karate is a lifelong path. It is a way of being. It is a practice of presence, a cultivation of integrity, and a celebration of the spirit awakened within. And in this practice, we discover the ultimate truth. Every moment is an opportunity to live fully, mindfully, and with the courage to meet ourselves honestly, again and again.